special business under the spotlight this month is Australian ethical shoe company Gideon Shoes.
Operated by the Ted Noffs Foundation, Gideon funds projects to help disadvantaged youth.
And Gideon's Matt Noffs promises free good karma with every shoe purchase.
Gideon Shoes was actually born out of a frustration that there wasn't anything being done by, I guess, both in the third world and in the Western world about unethical manufacturing, about sweatshop labour. And it was an opportunity for us to create a shoe, handmade right here in Australia, and say to consumers, you have a choice. This isn't just about us going out and saying there are problems with the world and there are problems with, you know, big shoe corp and how they manufacture shoes and clothes, for that matter. This is actually us saying we're going to take a stand, give consumers an option. Very simply, it's how a person should be paid and where they should be paid across the supply chain. So in Australia, we have sweatshops. There are people who are forced to make clothes very cheaply so that other fashion labels can make, and retailers can make huge margins on these. So there's a lot of inequality. We're seeing a lot of jobs obviously now in China and India, and now the government wants to claw those back because they realise it's actually better for our economy if we can make as much, if we can manufacture as much as we can back in Australia. So ethical clothing is actually about how we can create as many jobs back here and also take into account the human cost. Obviously, having a shoe that's, say, 3 times the price of a normal shoe makes people think when they first see the shoe, that is way too expensive. But that is because they've been taught to think that a shoe should cost, say, $75. That's actually incorrect. It's an incorrect way of looking at the world. If we were to say to people, on a tag, price tag, this is how much people are being paid across the way, this is how much the retailer makes. A retailer, for example, normally marks up between 100 and 130%. Okay? A manufacturer produces things incredibly cheaply. So you can get a sneaker made in China for less than $5. And of course, the person in the middle, for example us, in this case says, well, this is how much I'm going to mark up. So they might mark up, say, by 150% depending on who they are. We don't do that. We can hardly afford to mark up anywhere near 100%. Gideon Shoes is simply the idea of selling something and using that money to put back into Foundation's operations. So the challenge is keeping that business alive and going in an economic downturn and saying what's different or so different about this business that people should support it. I actually think it's more of an opportunity than it is a challenge for the Ted Noffs Foundation because it's at the forefront of social enterprise. It's actually at the forefront of saying we need to try new solutions as a non-profit sector if we're going to survive. It's all about treading water at the moment for a lot of charities and a lot of businesses, and we need to, right now, more than ever, be trying new things, and Gideon is simply that experiment at the front. Gideon Shoes is a way that we can actually fund programs like the Street University, which my wife and I set up in 2009 and is one of the country's largest youth centres. But we've also got other programs that we can assist, such as Program for Adolescent Life Management and our free legal service for young people. So Gideon Shoes is a way of creating revenue. It's also a way that young people can get involved. We train a lot of young people, whether it's through retail or design or even marketing. It's a way that we can actually eventually start employing young people so that we can create jobs as well. We want to head to the States and actually show what we've got over there. Americans have already shown a love for a lot of the Australiana at the moment, so things like cane toad and kangaroo is very exciting to them. But I think the most exciting thing that we're exporting is ethics. I actually think we're giving them something to say, how can we turn all of our fashion industry into an ethical process. So the answer might not be manufacturing in your hometown, but the idea might be fair trade, for example. And I think we're going to see that fair trade logo a lot more in the fashion industry now that we've seen it being used internationally through coffee companies and certainly Cadbury. I think there's a huge change that's happening globally, and I think Australia is at the forefront of it.